My son told me he didn't need me. Then he saw the gift I saved for 28 years. I'm standing in my son's kitchen. It's one of those modern kitchens with marble countertops and stainless steel appliances that cost more than my first car. He's wearing a suit that probably costs $3,000, and he's looking at me like I'm a stranger who just walked in off the street. And then he says the words that will replay in my mind for the next 6 months. Mom, I don't need you anymore. I haven't needed you for a long time. You need to understand that and move on with your life. The coffee cup in my hand is shaking. I set it down carefully on his expensive marble counter, and I can see the ring it leaves behind. A small imperfection on his perfect surface. Kind of like me, I suppose. My name is Michelle King. I'm 72 years old, and the son who just told me he doesn't need me is the same boy I raised alone after his father walked out when he was 3. But here's what my son doesn't know. In my bedroom closet, on the top shelf, behind my winter coats, there's a box. I've been adding to that box for 28 years. Every birthday, every Christmas, every milestone he was too busy to acknowledge. And what's inside that box is going to change everything he thinks he knows about being needed. If you're watching this, please hit that like button and subscribe. You're going to want to see how this ends. My son's name is Marcus Alexander King. He added the Alexander himself when he turned 18, said it sounded more professional, more distinguished. I named him Marcus after my father, a factory worker who never made more than $30,000 a year, but who taught me that love isn't measured in dollar signs. But Marcus doesn't remember my father, doesn't remember the man who would have given anything to see his grandson grow up. My father died when Marcus was 5, heart attack at 58, worked himself to death, really. I was 30 years old when Marcus's father left, David. I don't even like saying his name anymore. We'd been married for 5 years. I was working as a receptionist at a dental office, and David was in sales. Or that's what he told me. Turns out he was also in sales with his secretary, if you know what I mean. He left on a Tuesday morning. I remember because it was trash day, and I'd asked him to take the bins to the curb. He said he'd do it when he got back. He never came back. Just a note on the kitchen table, saying he needed to find himself, that he wasn't ready to be a father, that he was sorry. Sorry? Like that word could pay the rent or buy groceries or explain to a 3-year-old boy why his daddy didn't want him anymore. I raised Marcus in a 2-bedroom apartment in Portland, Oregon, the kind of apartment where you can hear your neighbors arguing through the walls and the heat only works half the time in winter. I worked 2 jobs most of his childhood, receptionist during the day, waitress 4 nights a week. My mother helped when she could, watching Marcus while I worked the late shifts. She died when he was 12. Cancer. That was the year Marcus started pulling away from me, I think. Started building the walls that would eventually become this. I never dated again after David left. Never had time, never had the energy, and honestly, I never wanted to bring another man into Marcus's life who might leave him. So it was just us, me and my boy against the world. I went to every parent-teacher conference, every school play, every soccer game, even though I had no idea what was happening on that field. I packed his lunches every morning with little notes tucked inside. Things like, "You're going to do great today," or "I'm proud of you," or "I love you more than all the stars." He used to bring those notes home and stick them on the refrigerator. By the time he was in high school, he stopped bringing them home. I found one crumpled in his backpack once when I was looking for a permission slip. It said the same thing they all said. "I love you, Marcus. Mom." He'd thrown it away. That should have been my first clue. Marcus was always smart, not just regular smart, the kind of smart where teachers would pull me aside and use words like gifted and exceptional. He got a full scholarship to Stanford, full ride. I cried when that acceptance letter came, cried because I was proud, and cried because I knew I was losing him. Stanford was 635 miles away. I looked it up, 9.5 hours by car. I drove him down for freshman orientation in my 1995 Honda Civic that burned oil and made a weird rattling sound whenever I went over 60. The other parents were dropping their kids in BMWs and Mercedes. Their kids had new laptops and mini fridges and expensive bedding. Marcus had a comforter I'd bought at Target and a desk lamp from a garage sale. I could see the embarrassment in his eyes, could see him looking around at these other families with their money and their ease, and I could see him making a decision to leave behind not just our apartment in Portland, but everything that apartment represented, everything I represented. I kissed him goodbye in the parking lot of his dormitory. He pulled away quickly, looking around to see if anyone was watching. "Drive safe, Mom," he said. "I'll call you this weekend." He didn't call that weekend. Or the next. When I finally reached him 3 weeks later, he sounded different. His voice had this new quality to it, this distance, like he was already practicing being someone else. The visits home got less frequent. First it was Thanksgiving and Christmas, then just Christmas, then every other Christmas. He graduated from Stanford with honors. I drove down for the ceremony in that same Honda Civic, which by then had 187,000 miles on it and a cracked windshield I couldn't afford to replace. I sat in the stands with thousands of other parents, and I screamed his name when they called it, Marcus Alexander King. He didn't look up at me, didn't wave, just took his diploma and walked off the stage. After the ceremony, I waited for him by the quad, like we'd planned. I watched him take photos with his friends and their families, watched him laugh and smile in a way I hadn't seen in years. When he finally came over to me, he introduced me quickly to a few people. "This is my mom, Michelle." Then he looked at his watch and said he had to get to a dinner with his study group. I'd driven 9.5 hours to watch him walk across a stage for 30 seconds. I should have said something then. Should have told him that his study group hurt less than the way he said my name, like it was something he had to get through, an obligation. But I didn't. I just hugged him and told him I was proud, and I got back in my car and drove 9.5 hours home. I cried somewhere around mile marker 387, pulled over at a rest stop and sobbed in a bathroom stall while a woman knocked on the door asking if I was okay. I wasn't okay. I haven't been okay since. Marcus got a job at a consulting firm in Seattle. Microsoft? No, McKinsey. One of those places where everyone is brilliant and ambitious and wants to change the world by optimizing corporate synergies or whatever that means. He moved into a condo in Capitol Hill. I know because he sent me his address in a text message. Not a call, a text. Just the address and nothing else. I sent him a card for his birthday that year. He was 23. I tucked $100 inside even though I couldn't really afford it. I never heard if he got it. The next year he got promoted. I know because I saw it on LinkedIn. I'd created a profile just to follow him, to see the life he was building without me. His profile picture was him in a suit standing in front of the Space Needle. He looked successful. He looked happy. He looked like he'd never lived in a 2-bedroom apartment where the heat only worked half the time. I wanted to comment on his post, to say congratulations, or I'm proud of you, or I love you. But I didn't want to embarrass him. Didn't want his colleagues to see that his mother was following him on social media like some kind of stalker. So I just liked the post and left it at that. He met Rebecca when he was 26. I didn't meet her until he was 28. That tells you everything you need to know. She's beautiful in that way that rich people are beautiful. Perfect teeth, perfect hair, the kind of clothes that look casual but probably cost more than my monthly rent. She works in finance. Her father owns a chain of car dealerships across Washington. When Marcus finally introduced us, it was at a restaurant I had to look up the dress code for online. I wore the nicest dress I owned, a black one I'd bought for my mother's funeral and hadn't worn since. Rebecca shook my hand and asked me about my work. I told her I was still at the dental office, still doing reception. She smiled and said, "That's nice. You must meet a lot of interesting people." There was nothing cruel in her voice. That's what made it worse. She was being kind in the way people are kind to service workers, polite but distant, like I was someone who existed in a completely different world from hers. They got engaged 6 months later. I found out from a Facebook post. A photo of them on a beach somewhere tropical, her hand extended toward the camera, showing off a ring that caught the sunlight like a tiny star. The caption said, "She said yes. I love you forever, Rebecca." 487 people liked it before I did. The wedding was at a vineyard in Napa Valley. I'd never been to Napa Valley, never really been anywhere except Portland and those drives to Stanford and back. The invitation came in the mail 3 months before the wedding, heavy cardstock with gold lettering. It looked expensive. Inside was a note in Marcus's handwriting. "Mom, I hope you can make it. It would mean a lot to Rebecca and me. It would mean a lot. Not I need you there or I want you there. It would mean a lot. Like I was a distant relative they felt obligated to invite." I bought a new dress for the wedding, spent money I didn't have at Macy's because I couldn't show up to my son's wedding in a funeral dress. It was blue, a nice blue, the kind of blue that looked good on me when I was younger. Now it just made me look old. The wedding was beautiful. Everything was beautiful. White flowers everywhere and string lights wrapped around trees and a string quartet playing something classical I didn't recognize. Rebecca looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Marcus looked like a man I didn't know. I sat in the third row during the ceremony, not the front row where mothers usually sit, the third row. Rebecca's parents and her 3 siblings and her grandmother took up the first 2 rows. I sat next to Marcus's college roommate and his girlfriend who I'd never met. During the reception, I watched Marcus dance with Rebecca, watched him dance with her mother, watched him give a toast about how Rebecca had changed his life, how she'd shown him what it meant to be part of a real family. A real family. I was sitting right there, 30 feet away, and he said those words into a microphone like I didn't exist. I left before they cut the cake, told someone I wasn't feeling well, which was true. I felt like I was drowning. Felt like I couldn't breathe in that beautiful vineyard with its beautiful people living their beautiful lives. I drove back to Portland in my car, which wasn't a Honda Civic anymore because that one finally died. Now I had a 2004 Toyota Corolla with 134,000 miles. An upgrade, I guess. I cried the whole way home. Not the pretty crying you see in movies, the ugly crying where your face gets puffy and your nose runs and you can barely see the road through your tears. I had to pull over twice, once at a gas station and once at a McDonald's parking lot at 2 in the morning. Both times I sat there in the dark, wondering what I'd done wrong. Wondering at what point I'd become someone my son needed to distance himself from. I think I know the answer. I became someone he needed to distance himself from the moment I couldn't give him the life he wanted. The moment he realized that his mother was poor and uneducated and ordinary. That I was the evidence of where he came from, and where he came from wasn't good enough for where he was going. After the wedding, the calls stopped completely. Before, he'd at least call on my birthday and Christmas. Quick calls where we'd exchange pleasantries, and he'd promise to visit soon, and we both knew he wouldn't. But after the wedding, even those stopped. I'd call him and get his voicemail. I'd text and get one-word responses. Busy, sorry, later. I started to feel like I was bothering him, like a telemarketer he was trying to avoid. So I stopped calling as much, stopped texting except for the important things. Like when Mrs. Chen from next door died, and I thought Marcus might want to know because Mrs. Chen used to watch him sometimes when my mother couldn't. He texted back, "That's sad. Sorry for your loss." That's sad. Like Mrs. Chen was someone who'd existed only in my life, not his. Like he didn't remember how she used to make him egg rolls and let him watch cartoons in her apartment when I was working late. Like none of it mattered because it was part of a past he'd left behind. They bought a house when Marcus turned 31. I saw it on Instagram. Rebecca posted photos of their new home. 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a kitchen that looked like something from a cooking show, a backyard with a pool. The caption said, "So grateful to start this new chapter in our dream home." I commented, "Congratulations, it looks beautiful." She liked my comment but didn't respond. A few weeks later, they had a housewarming party. I wasn't invited. I know about it because Rebecca posted photos. All their friends in expensive casual clothes, holding wine glasses and laughing. I scrolled through 47 photos looking for any sign that they'd thought of me, any indication that I was supposed to be there. There wasn't. That was the moment I realized something. I wasn't part of their new chapter. I wasn't part of their dream home. I was the old chapter, the one they'd closed and put on a shelf and hoped they'd never have to open again. But I kept adding to the box. Every year on his birthday, I'd buy something small and meaningful and add it to the box in my closet. The box itself was just a plastic storage container from Target, nothing fancy. But what was inside was 28 years of love that my son never knew about. I started the box the year he left for Stanford. He was 18. That first year, I added his baby blanket, the one he'd slept with until he was 7. It was blue with little yellow stars, and it still smelled like him, even though I'd washed it 100 times. I folded it carefully and placed it in the empty box, and I told myself I was being silly. Told myself he'd be back for Thanksgiving and this was just me being sentimental. But something in my gut knew I was losing him, knew I needed to hold on to the pieces while I still could. The second year, I added photos. Not just any photos, copies of every single photo I had of us together, from the day he was born up until the day I dropped him off at Stanford. I had them printed at Walgreens, cost me $43 I didn't really have. But I organized them chronologically in a small photo album and added it to the box. There were 287 photos total, 287 moments captured. His first birthday with cake smeared all over his face. His first day of kindergarten, standing by our apartment door holding a backpack that was too big for him. Halloween, when he was 10, and he dressed up as a scientist, and I made his costume from old clothes and cardboard. Christmas mornings, school plays, soccer games, him on my shoulders at the zoo, him helping me bake cookies, him asleep on the couch with his head in my lap. 287 pieces of evidence that we existed, that we were real. We were a family. The third year, I added letters. I'd been writing letters to Marcus since he left for college. Not letters I sent, just letters I wrote. Things I wanted to tell him but couldn't. About how proud I was. About how much I missed him. About how the apartment felt too quiet without him. About how I'd kept his room exactly the same, even though I could have used it for something else. I had 3 years' worth of letters by then. I tied them with a ribbon and added them to the box. Every year after that, I added more. More letters, more small things that reminded me of him. A program from his high school graduation, a newspaper clipping about his scholarship to Stanford, a copy of an award he won in middle school for academic excellence, movie ticket stubs from films we'd seen together before he decided he was too old to go to movies with his mom, a menu from his favorite restaurant, the Chinese place we used to go to every year on his birthday, where they'd give him free ice cream and we'd share an order of spring rolls. I added his report cards, all of them, from kindergarten through high school, straight A's mostly, a few B's in PE because he wasn't athletic, but so many teacher comments. Marcus is a joy to have in class. Marcus shows exceptional critical thinking skills. Marcus is respectful and hardworking. I read those comments sometimes when I was feeling particularly lonely. Reminded myself that I'd raised a good kid, that whatever happened between us, I'd done something right. I added birthday cards I'd sent him over the years that came back returned to sender because he'd moved and didn't update his address with me. I'd written messages inside. Happy 25th birthday, my love. I'm so proud of the man you've become. Hope you're happy. Love always, Mom. Those cards sat in the box, unopened, unwanted. By the time Marcus was 35, I'd been adding to this box for 17 years. It was getting full. Sometimes I'd take it down from the closet and go through everything. Touch the baby blanket, look at the photos, read the letters, cry. Then I'd put it all back and push the box to the back of the shelf and tell myself I was being ridiculous, that I should just throw it all away, that holding on to this stuff wasn't healthy. But I couldn't, because that box was proof. Proof that I'd loved him, proof that I'd been there, proof that no matter what he thought, no matter how much he wanted to pretend I didn't exist, I was his mother, and nothing could change that. Last year, Marcus turned 46. I'm 72 now. I've been retired for 3 years. I get Social Security and a small pension from the dental office. It's enough to pay rent and buy groceries and keep the lights on. I don't have much, but I have enough. I don't see Marcus anymore. Haven't seen him in person in almost 4 years. He sends a Christmas card every year, one of those photo cards with a picture of him and Rebecca and their 2 kids. Yes, 2 kids, a boy and a girl, ages 8 and 5, my grandchildren who I've never met. The cards are always the same. A professional photo of their perfect family in matching outfits with a message that says, "Happy Holidays from the King family." No personal note. No "Love Marcus." Just their names printed at the bottom. I put those cards on my refrigerator anyway, even though it hurts to look at them, even though they're evidence of everything I've lost. I put them up because they're the only connection I have left. Then, 6 months ago, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Seattle area code. I almost didn't answer because I figured it was a spam call, but something made me pick up. Hello? Mom? It was Marcus. My heart started pounding. I sat down on my couch because my knees suddenly felt weak. Marcus? Hi. How are you? There was a long pause. I'm fine. Listen, I need to talk to you about something. Okay, I'm listening. Another pause. This was harder than I thought it would be. Harder than what? Marcus, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Look, Rebecca and I have been talking, and we think it would be better if you didn't try to contact us anymore. What? I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. We've moved on with our lives, and we're trying to build something for our kids, and it's confusing for them to have you calling and sending cards, and we just think it's better for everyone if you respect our boundaries and give us space. I couldn't breathe. I literally could not take a breath. You're asking me not to contact you. I'm asking you to understand that I'm 46 years old, Mom. I have my own family now. And I love you, but I don't need you anymore. I haven't needed you for a long time. You need to understand that and move on with your life. Move on with my life? Like he was breaking up with me. Like 46 years of being his mother was something I could just move on from. I don't remember what I said after that. I think I said, okay. I think I told him I understood, even though I didn't. I think I hung up the phone and sat on my couch staring at the wall for 3 hours. When I finally moved, it was dark outside. I hadn't turned on any lights. I just sat there in the dark in my small apartment, and I thought about everything. About the nights I'd stayed awake worried about him when he was sick. About the extra shifts I'd worked to buy him new shoes when his old ones got too small. About the birthdays and Christmases where I'd gone without so he could have something special. About the letters and the photos and the baby blanket in a box in my closet that he didn't even know existed. And I made a decision. I was going to show him that box. I was going to make him see what he'd thrown away, what he'd decided he didn't need. Not because I wanted to hurt him, but because he needed to know, needed to understand what it really means to be needed, to be loved, even when you don't deserve it. I called him back the next day. He didn't answer. I left a voicemail. Marcus, I need to see you. I'm coming to Seattle. I'll be there next Saturday. I'm not asking permission. I'm your mother, and I have something to show you. Then I hung up, and I booked a bus ticket because I don't drive long distances anymore, and my Corolla probably wouldn't make it to Seattle anyway. I took the box down from my closet. I went through everything one more time. The blanket, the photos, the letters, the cards, the memories. I added one more thing. A letter I wrote to him that morning. The last letter I would ever write. And then I packed the box in a larger bag, and I got on a bus to Seattle. The bus ride took 4 hours. I spent the whole time rehearsing what I would say, how I would explain, how I would make him understand. But when I got to his house in my worn-out coat with my old bag and knocked on his door, all my rehearsed words disappeared. He answered wearing jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He looked surprised to see me. Annoyed. Mom, what are you doing here? I told you we needed space. I need to show you something. Marcus, this isn't a good time. I didn't come all this way to be turned away. Please, just give me 10 minutes. He looked back into the house, and I could hear voices. Rebecca and the kids, probably. He stepped outside and closed the door behind him. 10 minutes, he said. I walked past him into the house anyway. He sighed, but didn't stop me. The inside was even more beautiful than the photos. High ceilings, hardwood floors, furniture that looked like it belonged in a showroom. Rebecca appeared from the kitchen. She was wearing yoga pants and a tank top and still looked perfect. Oh, Michelle, hi. We weren't expecting you. I know, I'm sorry to intrude. I just need to talk to Marcus. She looked at him. He gave her a look that said, give us a minute. She disappeared back into the kitchen. We stood in his living room, this room that cost more than I'd made in 10 years, and I set my bag down on his expensive couch and I pulled out the box. What? That? He asked. This is what you don't need anymore. I opened the box. I pulled out the baby blanket first. Do you remember this? You slept with this until you were 7. You called it your happy blanket. You took it everywhere, to school, to the store, to your grandmother's house. One time you left it at a restaurant and we had to drive back at midnight to get it because you couldn't sleep without it. He stared at the blanket. His face was unreadable. I pulled out the photo album. These are photos of us, all of us, from the day you were born until the day you left for college. 287 photos. I counted. Look at them. He didn't move. So I opened the album and I started going through it, showing him, forcing him to see. This is your first birthday. You weren't walking yet, but you were so excited about the cake that you tried to climb out of your high chair. This is your first day of kindergarten. You were so scared. You held my hand so tight I had bruises. But I walked you to your classroom and I stayed until you felt safe. This is Halloween when you were 10. You wanted to be a scientist, so I made you a lab coat out of an old white shirt, and we made fake test tubes out of water bottles. You won 2nd place in the costume contest at school. Do you remember that? He was starting to look uncomfortable, shifting his weight, looking anywhere but at me. Mom, I don't see the point of this. The point, I said, and my voice was shaking now, is that you said you don't need me. That you haven't needed me for a long time. But this is what need looks like, Marcus. This is what love looks like when you don't get anything back. I pulled out the letters. Hundreds of them now. 28 years of letters. I've been writing to you since you left for college. Things I wanted to tell you but couldn't. Things you were too busy to hear. I pulled out one at random and I read it out loud. Dear Marcus, you're 24 today. I tried to call, but you didn't answer. I wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you, that I see your LinkedIn updates and I see how successful you've become, and even though I don't fully understand what you do, I know you're good at it. I wanted to tell you that I miss you, that the apartment feels too empty without you, that I still set a place for you at dinner sometimes, out of habit, before I remember you're not coming home. I wanted to tell you that I love you, that I've always loved you, that nothing you do or don't do will ever change that. Happy birthday, my sweet boy. Love, Mom. I looked up at him. His jaw was tight. His eyes were wet, but no tears fell. I wrote that letter 12 years ago, I said. You never called me back that day, or the next day, or the week after. I wrote you a letter anyway, because that's what mothers do. We love you whether you need us or not. I pulled out more things. The report cards, the programs, the newspaper clippings, the cards that came back returned to sender. I spread them all out on his coffee table. This glass and chrome coffee table that probably cost $3,000. This is your whole childhood, I said. Every piece of you that I saved because you were too busy becoming someone else to remember where you came from. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. I'm trying to make you understand. You called me last week and you told me you don't need me. And you're right, you don't. You have money and a beautiful house and a perfect family. You don't need a mother who lives in a small apartment and worked as a receptionist her whole life. You don't need someone who reminds you that you used to shop at thrift stores and eat ramen for dinner 3 nights a week. But Marcus, I need you to understand something. Need isn't the same as love. You've spent 20 years trying to not need me, trying to build a life where I don't fit. And you've succeeded. But needing someone and loving someone are two different things. I didn't keep this box because I needed you to need me. I kept it because I love you. And that love doesn't stop just because you moved away or got successful or started a family. That love doesn't stop just because you're embarrassed of where you came from. By now, I was crying, big, ugly tears running down my face. I didn't bother wiping them away. Rebecca had appeared in the doorway. I could see her standing there. The kids were behind her. These grandchildren I'd never met. They were staring at this old woman crying in their living room. Marcus was standing perfectly still. His hands were in his pockets. His face was doing something I couldn't read, trying to stay composed but failing. I pulled out the last thing in the box, the letter I'd written yesterday. "This is for you," I said, holding it out to him. "It's the last letter I'll ever write. Because you're right, you don't need me, and I need to accept that. But I want you to read it someday, when you're older maybe, when your kids are grown and they've moved away and built lives that don't include you. When you're sitting alone wondering where the time went and why the people you love don't call anymore. Read it then. Maybe you'll understand." He took the letter. His hand was shaking. I started putting everything back in the box. The blanket, the photos, the letters, all of it. "I'm keeping this," I said, "because even though you don't want it, it's mine. These are my memories, my proof that I was a good mother, that I did everything I could, that I loved you the best way I knew how." I closed the box. I picked up my bag, and I looked at my son one last time. "I love you, Marcus. I've loved you every single day of your life. When you were a baby, keeping me up all night. When you were a teenager, slamming doors and telling me you hated me. When you were in college, learning to be embarrassed of me. When you got married and put me in the third row. When you had kids and didn't tell me. I loved you through all of it. And I'll keep loving you even now, even when you don't want me to. That's what mothers do. We love you whether you need us or not." I walked toward the door. Rebecca moved aside to let me pass. As I reached for the doorknob, I heard something, a sound. I turned around. Marcus was standing in the middle of his perfect living room, holding that letter, and he was crying. Not just tears, real crying, the kind of crying where your whole body shakes and you can't catch your breath. He was looking down at the box on his coffee table, at the baby blanket visible on top, and he was crying. "Mom," he said. His voice broke on the word. "Mom, I—" He couldn't finish. He just stood there crying. And for a moment, I wanted to go to him. Wanted to hold him like I did when he was little and he'd had a nightmare. But I didn't. Because he needed to feel this. Needed to sit with what he'd thrown away. I opened the door and I walked out. I heard Rebecca say something behind me, but I didn't stop. I walked down their perfect driveway to the street where I'd parked my Uber. I got in the car and told the driver to take me to the bus station. And I didn't look back. The bus ride home was quiet. I sat in the back and I stared out the window at the landscape passing by. I thought about Marcus standing in his living room crying. I thought about whether showing him that box had been cruel or necessary. I thought about whether anything would change, or if this was just the final ending to a relationship that had been dying for years. I didn't know. I still don't know. That was 3 weeks ago. Marcus hasn't called, hasn't texted. I don't know if he read the letter. I don't know if he ever will. But I know I did the right thing. Because sometimes love isn't about being needed. Sometimes love is about showing up anyway. About holding on even when the other person has let go. About keeping a box full of memories because they matter, even if no one else thinks they do. By now, I was crying, big, ugly tears running down my face. I didn't bother wiping them away. Rebecca had appeared in the doorway. I could see her standing there watching. The kids were behind her. These grandchildren I'd never met. They were staring at this old woman crying in their living room. Marcus was standing perfectly still. His hands were in his pockets. His face was doing something I couldn't read, trying to stay composed but failing. I pulled out the last thing in the box, the letter I'd written yesterday. "This is for you," I said, holding it out to him. "It's the last letter I'll ever write. Because you're right, you don't need me, and I need to accept that. But I want you to read it someday, when you're older maybe, when your kids are grown and they've moved away and built lives that don't include you. When you're sitting alone wondering where the time went and why the people you love don't call anymore. Read it then. Maybe you'll understand." He took the letter. His hand was shaking. I started putting everything back in the box. The blanket, the photos, the letters, all of it. "I'm keeping this," I said, "because even though you don't want it, it's mine. These are my memories, my proof that I was a good mother, that I did everything I could, that I loved you the best way I knew how." I closed the box. I picked up my bag, and I looked at my son one last time. "I love you, Marcus. I've loved you every single day of your life. When you were a baby, keeping me up all night. When you were a teenager, slamming doors and telling me you hated me. When you were in college, learning to be embarrassed of me. When you got married and put me in the third row. When you had kids and didn't tell me. I loved you through all of it. And I'll keep loving you even now, even when you don't want me to. That's what mothers do. We love you whether you need us or not." I walked toward the door. Rebecca moved aside to let me pass. As I reached for the doorknob, I heard something. A sound. I turned around. Marcus was standing in the middle of his perfect living room, holding that letter, and he was crying. Not just tears, real crying, the kind of crying where your whole body shakes and you can't catch your breath. He was looking down at the box on his coffee table, at the baby blanket visible on top, and inside was a photo frame, one of those digital frames that cycles through pictures, and a note. "Mom, I've spent the last 3 weeks going through everything you showed me. The photos, the letters, all of it. I read every single letter, some of them multiple times. I've been sitting with a lot of things, a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of realization about who I became and who I left behind to become that person. I called Dad yesterday, or tried to. The number I had for him doesn't work anymore. I realized I don't even know where he is, if he's alive, if he thinks about me. But you've always been there. Every single moment of my life, you were there. And I spent 20 years trying to pretend you weren't. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know I can't give you back the years I took from you, the phone calls I didn't return, the visits I canceled, the grandkids you've never met. But I want to try, if you'll let me." Rebecca and I talked, really talked, about everything. She didn't realize how badly I'd been treating you, how completely I'd cut you out. She's ashamed of me, and she's right to be. "We want you to come for Thanksgiving. The kids want to meet their grandmother. I've told them about you. The real you, not the version I created where you barely existed. I told them about the apartment and the 2 jobs and the notes in my lunch. I told them you're the reason I got to go to college, the reason I had any opportunities at all. And they want to meet you. I want you here, Mom, not because I need you, but because I love you, and because you deserve to be part of this family. You've always been part of this family. I just forgot that for a while. I'm sorry. I love you. Marcus." I sat on my couch reading that note over and over. Then I turned on the digital frame. It cycled through photos I'd never seen, photos he must have scanned from his own collection. Marcus as a teenager at his high school graduation, me next to him smiling. I remembered that day. Marcus in his cap and gown at Stanford, me standing next to him in the parking lot by my Honda Civic. I'd forgotten someone took that photo. Marcus and Rebecca's wedding. This photo I'd never seen, taken from a different angle. Me in my blue dress, sitting in the 3rd row, watching the ceremony. The look on my face. Pride and pain mixed together. And then new photos, recent ones. Marcus with his kids, the boy who looks just like Marcus did at that age, the girl with my mother's eyes. Photos of their house, their life. And mixed in between, old photos from the box I'd shown him. My photos. The ones I'd kept for 28 years. He'd scanned them, added them to this frame, creating a timeline that connected past and present, that acknowledged where he came from, that included me. I'm crying again as I write this, but this time they're different tears. 3 weeks ago, I thought I'd lost my son forever. Thought that showing him that box was my final goodbye, my way of releasing him to the life he'd chosen without me. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe sometimes love isn't about holding on or letting go. Maybe sometimes love is about showing someone the truth and trusting them to know what to do with it. I don't know what Thanksgiving will be like. I don't know if things between Marcus and me can ever be fully healed. 20 years is a long time to be apart, a long time to build walls. But I'm going to try. I'm going to get on that bus to Seattle, and I'm going to meet my grandchildren, and I'm going to sit at my son's table, and I'm going to let myself be part of his life again. Not because he needs me, but because he wants me there. And maybe that's better. Maybe being wanted is worth more than being needed. Maybe love that's chosen is stronger than love that's obligated. I still have the box. It's back on the top shelf of my closet, behind my winter coats. But now it's not a secret. Now it's not something I hide and cry over in the dark. Now it's proof. Proof that love doesn't give up. That mothers don't stop loving even when their children forget to love them back. That 28 years of letters and photos and memories matter. That we matter. Marcus and I talked on the phone last night. Really talked, for the first time in years. He asked me about my life, about what I do with my days, about whether I'm happy. And I told him the truth. I told him I've been lonely, that retirement is harder than I thought it would be, that some days I don't talk to anyone except the cashier at the grocery store. But I also told him I have a small garden on my balcony where I grow tomatoes and basil, that I volunteer at the library on Tuesdays, that I've taken up watercolor painting, and I'm not very good, but I enjoy it, that I'm okay. Not great, but okay. And that's enough. He listened, really listened, in a way he hasn't in decades. And then he said something that broke my heart and put it back together at the same time. He said, "Mom, I want to know these things. I want to know about your tomatoes and your paintings and your library days. I want to be part of your life, the way you've always been part of mine, even when I didn't deserve it. I want my kids to know their grandmother, the real you, not some stranger we see once a year. I want to do better. I want to be better." So that's where we are now, starting over, learning how to be mother and son again after years of being strangers. It won't be easy. There's a lot of hurt to work through, a lot of conversations we need to have about his father and my choices and his choices and all the years in between. But we're going to try, and that's something. That's everything.